The Hells Angels stand out as one of the most renowned motorcycle clubs globally, representing the infamous 1%. Originating in California in 1948, the group has since burgeoned to encompass over 450 chapters spread across 59 countries. Its rich history has been extensively portrayed in various movies, TV series, and books. Notably, members of the Hells Angels have been recognized for providing support to abuse victims during legal proceedings, reflecting the club's commitment to charity work and the emergence of some members as revered figures. However, amidst its philanthropic endeavors, the club's narrative is not devoid of darker episodes. As it gained prominence and expanded in size, the Hells Angels frequently found themselves entangled in conflicts and violent confrontations, bearing some responsibility for the turmoil. Today, we delve into 7 instances where the Hells Angels clashed with rival motorcycle clubs, exploring how these skirmishes potentially influenced the club's evolution. Beginning with number 7, the Vagos MC, another California-based motorcycle club with a parallel genesis to the Angels. Established in 1965, the Vagos initially attracted Vietnam War veterans and societal outcasts. However, their reputation soon earned them the moniker Mafia on Wheels, courtesy of a former informant who infiltrated their ranks. The Vagos swiftly carved a niche in the criminal underworld, engaging in activities ranging from drug trafficking to money laundering and arms dealing. As the new millennium dawned and the Vagos expanded further, they encroached upon Hells Angels territory, setting the stage for potential conflicts. In October 2001, a violent clash erupted between members of the Hells Angels and the Vagos in Costa Mesa. Escalating into a full-blown melee, the altercation involved approximately 70 individuals, wielding items ranging from handlebars to gas tanks as weapons. This incident marked the outset of a series of confrontations, culminating in a shootout at a casino in Sparks, Nevada, roughly a decade later. Referred to as the Nugget Casino shooting, this deadly encounter resulted in the tragic demise of Hells Angels, San Jose, President Jeffrey Pettigrew, and the apprehension of Vagos Los Angeles, Vice President Gary Rudnick. Moving on to number 6, the Breed MC. Another 1%er club established in the 1960s. Originating from Ashbury Park, a quaint coastal city in central New Jersey, the Breed MC swiftly expanded its membership to over 3,000 during the 1970s. Their activities primarily revolved around illicit endeavors, including drug trafficking, extortion, theft, assault, and witness intimidation. The club's influence spread as new chapters emerged in New York, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. However, their brazen conduct and aggressive behavior drew the attention of the Cleveland chapter of the Hells Angels. By 1971, tensions between the two clubs reached a boiling point, culminating in a violent altercation during the eagerly awaited annual motorcycle custom and trade show in the city. In a coordinated knife attack, the Angels struck first, resulting in the tragic deaths of 5 individuals and numerous injuries within minutes. By the conclusion of the night, law enforcement had apprehended more than 85 individuals, with 20 requiring hospitalization. The clash at the 1971 motorcycle show marked the inception of a protracted series of confrontations involving both the Hells Angels and the Breed, including a retaliatory assault where Angels members hurled grenades at the residence of the Breed's national president. Eventually, in 2006, the Breed disbanded amidst widespread indictments and internal strife. Former members widely perceived the ongoing feud with the Hells Angels as a primary factor contributing to the Breed's demise. Number 5. The Pagans, established in Maryland in 1957, initially comprised a predominantly pacifist group of friends influenced by motorcycle clubs in the UK and Europe. The original 13 members rode a variety of American and British bikes, donning embroidered leather and denim jackets that resembled their European counterparts more than other clubs of the era. However, by the late 1960s, these distinctions faded as the Pagans adopted a more aggressive demeanor. Over the ensuing decades, the pagans became intertwined with traditional organized crime syndicates in numerous cities, including major urban centers like Philadelphia, New York, and Pittsburgh. In the 1990s, tensions escalated when the Hells Angels launched their first assault, targeting the president of the Pagans' Philadelphia chapter and firing 9 shots at close range. Despite the target's survival, this initial attack sparked multiple retaliation efforts, including a Pagans raid on a Hells Angels-sponsored event several years later. During this altercation, 1 pagan member was killed, and 73 others were apprehended. The conflict between the pagans and the Hells Angels persisted well into the 2000s and 2010s. Following a brief hiatus around the onset of the COVID pandemic, hostilities between the two clubs have reignited, resulting in casualties and incarceration on both sides. Number 4. Sons of Satan. Initially one of the smaller motorcycle clubs that would eventually merge into the Pagans, the Sons of Satan avoided direct confrontation with the Hells Angels during their formative years. In the 1970s, Sons of Satan's founder John Marine brokered an agreement with the leadership of the Pagans. However, when certain members transitioned to the new organization, they found themselves embroiled in an escalating rivalry with the Angels. Following the Hells Angels assaults in the 1990s, the Sons of Satan rode alongside their pagan comrades, often facing injury in the process. Consequently, the traditional Satan's clubhouse in Rife, Pennsylvania, fell victim to a pipe bomb attack in December 2002. Despite investigators failing to identify a perpetrator and the subsequent reconstruction of the house, many within the group attributed the incident to the Hells Angels. 3. Bandidos. The Bandidos, the second largest motorcycle club globally following the Angels, originated in 1966 in Houston, Texas. Inspired by the exploits of Mexican bandits along the US-Mexico border, the club swiftly attracted a diverse membership, including disgruntled Vietnam veterans and dock workers, numbering in the hundreds by the 1970s. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, the Bandidos expanded their presence across the United States and Australia, establishing chapters such as Sydney in 1983. This rapid growth led to conflicts with various other clubs, notably the Angels, but it was their expansion into Europe that sparked a full-scale war. By the early 1990s, the Bandidos had established chapters in Northern Europe, including Copenhagen in Denmark, Oslo in Norway, and Helsinki in Finland. This expansion ignited the Great Nordic Biker War in 1994, a 3-year conflict over territorial disputes that significantly influenced Europe's perception of motorcycle clubs, involving over 20 larger and smaller clubs resorting to tactics ranging from car bombings to drive-bys and even stolen anti-tank missiles. The conflict resulted in 9 biker fatalities and nearly 100 injuries, including civilians and law enforcement officers. Although the Hells Angels and Bandidos officially negotiated a peace treaty by the late 1990s, sporadic clashes between the two clubs persist to this day. Members from both sides continue to face arrests on charges of assault and attempted murder in major cities across Europe and the United States. Number 2. Mongols MC. While our previous discussion of the Mongols MC centered on their conflicts with the Mexican Mafia, this Los Angeles-based motorcycle club has also had numerous encounters with the Hells Angels throughout its history. As the Mongols rapidly expanded in size and influence during the 1970s, tensions arose when they began claiming California as their home state and added a California rocker to their patch, a privilege previously exclusive to the Angels. This dispute over the bottom rocker sparked a conflict that endured for nearly 5 decades. Despite intermittent ceasefires and periods of peace, the Angels still view the Mongols as formidable adversaries, and clashes between the two groups are not uncommon. Although most altercations involve only a few members from each side and often result in no serious consequences, Both clubs have been involved in larger outbreaks of violence. In 2002, for instance, a confrontation during the annual Laughlin River Run resulted in the deaths of 2 Hells Angels members and 1 Mongol. Dubbed the River Run Riot, this incident is also recognized as the first mass murder at a Nevada casino. The Outlaws. The Outlaws, arguably the most prominent adversaries of the Hells Angels, have been locked in a long-standing conflict with the California-based club for generations. From the late 1960s to the mid-1970s, the expansion of both organizations ignited a series of clashes, resulting in casualties on both sides. However, the most significant confrontation occurred in Canada, fundamentally altering the perception of both clubs for years to come. Dubbed the first biker war in the country, this conflict raged from the mid-1970s to the mid-1980s, stemming from territorial disputes in Quebec and Ontario. The First Biker War, marked by intense violence, saw a staggering toll of 70 deaths, over 100 injuries, and more than 50 arrests. Notably, during the conflict, members of the Outlaws successfully assassinated Yves Bouton, the Angels' inaugural national leader in Canada. In retaliation, the Hells Angels launched a ruthless campaign of targeted killings, effectively decimating the Montreal chapter of the Outlaws. By the signing of an international peace treaty in 1984, the Hells Angels emerged victorious, solidifying their dominance and expanding further into Canadian territory. In contrast, the Outlaws retained control of Ontario until the early 2000s.